Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yes, good morning, everyone. We will start with our today's session on corporate governance.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yesterday, we were discussing about the guidelines of corporate governance or code of corporate governance, which is being implemented or practiced in the companies of UK, United Kingdom. So today we will try to take up both the countries. South Africa we will be discussing, and Singapore we will try, if it is possible, we will try to discuss the code of corporate governance or the corporate governance guidelines to be followed by the companies of Singapore. We will try to discuss that also. So first we will start with the corporate governance guidelines of South Africa. Yesterday, while we were discussing about the corporate guidelines or code of corporate governance to be followed by the UK companies, at that time we had discussed that the countries which we will be discussing, that is Singapore, United Kingdom, Australia, and South Africa, all these countries or these three countries were controlled or were ruled by the United Kingdom. And United Kingdom is considered as a pioneering code of corporate governance. And the code of corporate governance, which was recommended by the Cadbury Committee in 1992, more or less has been finalized or has been implemented by the other countries of the world also. There are few changes in that particular code, but more or less, most of the practices are very much similar to what it is practiced in the code of corporate governance of UK. So we will be discussing now about the corporate governance code followed by the companies of South Africa. So yesterday we were discussing that the Mervyn King's Committee was set up by the government of South Africa to suggest the improvements that can be made in the existing code of corporate governance of South Africa. In November 2016, this committee, under the chairmanship of Mervyn King, they gave certain recommendations which were later on implemented by the South African companies. Now, these recommendations were based on the principles of corporate governance. Yesterday also we had discussed that in India we follow the laws, most of which are formed under Companies Act 2013 related to the corporate governance, as well as the various rules which are formed under SEBI. But when we talked about the UK companies, we discussed that these companies follow the principles, and these principles are very much similar when we discuss about the South African companies. Now, earlier, before the committee of this Mervyn King in 2016, there were 75 guiding principles which were to be followed by the South African companies related to the corporate governance guidelines. So there were 75 principles. Later on, this particular committee, King's Committee, which was called, now King's Committee curtailed this or minimized this 75 principles into 17 principles, because the idea behind that was that when we are having so many principles, that is 75 was considered as too many principles, so it became difficult for the board to monitor whether all the 75 principles are being implemented in a proper manner in the company or not, or in the board itself or not. So the King Committee recommended, instead of having 75 principles, it will be better or it will be easier for the board to monitor if the number of guiding principles related to corporate governance are less. So the committee recommended that instead of 75, it should be 17. So 17 main principles should be there, which should be the guiding principles of corporate governance for the companies. That was the thought of King's Committee, and that was the recommendation of the King Committee. Now, these recommendations were accepted and it came into being from the year 2017. Now, what those principles are, generally they are very much similar to what we had discussed yesterday. So we will uh, discuss it very fast. So the first principle is related to leadership. Now, this principle expects that the governor, under leadership principle, the what is expected is that the governing body should lead ethically and effectively. Now, here governing body means board of directors. There they call it a governing body, and in India we call it board of directors, one and the same. So governing body should lead ethically and effectively. So yesterday also we had discussed the principle, first principle related to leadership in UK company is very much similar to this, which expects, effectively means that the members or directors of the board should be experts in their field, should have that much of skill, that much of experience, that much of technical expertise with them, then only we can say that they can do their job effectively. So first principle is related to leadership, which expects that the governing body should lead ethically and effectively. Now, the second principle is related to organizational ethics or organizational values, organizational beliefs. Now, this principle expects that the governing body should ensure, or the board of director should ensure, that the ethics of organization or values of the organization are implemented in the company as it is. It should not happen that the values are compromised for someone at the top position, or ethics are compromised for some person as that person is a relative of the member of governing body. So what is expected under the principle of organizational ethics is the organizational ethics or values are to be implemented in the board as well as in the company also. Now, the next principle is related to strategy, performance, and reporting. Now, this particular principle expects that the governing body should be involved in the preparation of strategy, and it should always monitor the performance of the organization. So it is related to strategy formulation and strategy implementation, as well as performance monitoring and performance evaluation. And the last concept in this principle is related to reporting. Reporting, we know reporting means that whatever things are happening in the organization, suppose financial audits are there. Now, these financial audits are to be reported to the governing body of the company or board of directors of the company. Now, auditors should be, here also it is expected that auditors should have authority to do their task independently. It should not happen that somebody at the higher position of the company is influencing the auditors in an unethical manner. So that should not be practiced. So that is under strategy, the next principle which we discussed about strategy, performance, and reporting. Now, the next principle is related to the governing structure and the role and responsibility of the governing body. So this principle expects that the structure should be clear and transparent. It should be known to the company that what is the structure of the governing body, means who is the chairman, who are the board members or board directors. That should be clear, that should be known to everyone, as well as the role and responsibilities of the governing body should be defined in a proper manner. So it is expected that the role of chairman should be defined in a clear manner, as well as the other members. They should know what their role and responsibilities are. The committees which are formed under this governing body or board of directors should have clear composition. They should be clear with their role under this principle related to governing structures and role and responsibilities of the governing body. Now, the next principle is related to the various practices that are to be followed by the governing body. So it is expected that the practices of the governing body should be as which are being there in the board charter which we had discussed, or which are included in the rules and regulations of that particular company. Now the next next principle of governance is evaluation. It is related to evaluations of performance of the governing body. So we have discussed enough on evaluation of governing body. Same things are there, only evaluation pattern changes. But in every country, whatever we have discussed so far, we have realized that in each and every country's code of corporate governance or corporate governance guidelines, it is mentioned that there has to be evaluation of the board, evaluation of the members of the board or directors of the board. Only thing is that evaluation parameters changes from countries to country. When we were discussing the evaluation pattern or parameters of Indian companies, we had discussed that it is expected under the guidelines of corporate governance in India by SEBI that there has to be evaluation sheets are to be circulated, are to be filled. What parameters should be included, that is also there in the SEBI guidelines that we had discussed. So similarly, evaluation is done here also in South African companies of the governing body, of the governing members at a whole and individually also, as well as evaluation of the committees which are formed under this governing body. But evaluation parameter may change. It is not specified as it is specified for Indian companies that how this evaluation will take place. The companies or the board is at liberty that they can decide their evaluation parameter. But one thing is clear, that annual evaluation is essential. So the principle says that evaluation annually should be there. Now the next principle is related to the appointment and delegation to management. Now here it is expected that appointment and delegation to management means we are here talking about the company management or the organizational management. So it is the responsibility or role of the governing body to elect or to select or to choose the topmost positions who will be taking care of the daily affairs of the company. That is the CEO of the organization or general manager of the organization or senior manager of the organization. These posts are to be selected, are to be recommended by the governing body or the board of directors of a particular company. Now, not only appointment is to be taken care by the governing body or board of directors, but it is also expected that they should clarify the role and responsibility of that particular position also. That what will be the role and responsibility and authorities of general manager of the organization or managing director of the organization or the senior or the chief sales director of the organization or sales manager of the organization. So that is to be finalized by the governing body only. So that was a principle related to the appointment and delegation. Now, the next principle is related to risk governance. Now, we all know what risk management is. Yesterday also we had discussed when we were discussing about the guidelines or code of corporate governance in UK. So risk business is, say, business is, we can say it is related to risk taking. We cannot survive in business, or we cannot grow in business if we are not taking risk. So risk is an activity which is, we can say, inseparable from the term business. We have to take risk, then only we can grow in business. But how a risk should be taken, that is expected in the principle of risk governance. Yesterday also we had discussed that risk should be taken on sound information, on correct information, or on authentic information. Authentic information means that the board should be expert enough, the members of the board should be expert enough to, say, forecast what the future will be of a particular industry. If suppose the company is into automobile industry, now this governing board body should be able to forecast what will be the structure or what will be the future of automobile industry after, say, 5 years, or after 10 years, or after 3 years. So that forecasting is included in risk governance. Now, if they are doing this forecasting on the basis of sound information, or authentic research, or good research, we can say, then we can expect that this risk will prove to be good or productive for the company. But if this research is not based on correct or authentic information, or the research is not done in a proper manner, then we can say that there are more chances that the forecast of the company will fail in future. So risk governance is, everyone knows that business is associated with risk, but risk should be calculated and risk should be taken on the basis of a proper research or authentic information. So that is expected in the principle related to risk governance in South Africa. Now, the next next principle of corporate governance is related to technology and information governance. Now, technology, we all know that what technology is. It is expected in this principle that the governing body should always try to improve the existing technology. So whatever the existing technology of that particular company is, the board should always try to improve upon that particular technology, how they can make that particular technology a better technology for future. And information governance is related to, yesterday also we had discussed, information governance is whatever information is expected by the governing body for coming to a conclusion on a particular point, on a particular matter, that particular information is to be supplied by the company. Timely supply of information we had discussed yesterday, and quality information to be supplied by the company. That also we had discussed yesterday. So same thing is expected here also when we are talking about the principle related to technology and corporate governance. Now the next principle is related to compliance governance. Compliance means whatever is expected under various laws of a particular country are to be complied, are to be fulfilled. That is compliance. So compliance governance means here in this principle, governing body, the role of the governing body is it has to see to it that whatever the rules are there, whatever the norms are there under various laws of South Africa, that rules and laws are to be complied and are to be fulfilled in time. Next principle is related to the remuneration governance. Now, remuneration we had discussed for Indian companies also, and yesterday also we had discussed that remuneration. Now, here it is expected under this principle related to remuneration governance, it is expected that the corporate governance, the governing body or the board of directors has to finalize a fair and transparent remuneration policy for the top positions of the company. Now, if suppose we are saying that CEO can be one, or CFO is the second position, or chief sales officer is the third position. So all these important positions, the remunerations can be finalized by the governing body. What is expected is that the remuneration should be fair and transparent, and it should attract the top authority of that particular company to be with the company and to be more productive. So incentives or the package offered to the MD or CEO should be attractive enough so that he can try to be more productive. So it should be associated with some good or attractive incentives. So that is under remuneration governance. Not only finalizing it is the part of governing body, but also to check whether whatever which has been finalized by the governing body is implemented or not. It should not happen that governing body has finalized remuneration, but it is not followed by the company. If this particular thing take place in a company, we can say that it is not a fair and transparent remuneration principle. So under remuneration governance principle, it is expected that the company's top positions remuneration are to be finalized, are to be fixed by the governing body or the board of directors, but it should be implemented in total as it is by the company also. There should not be any deviation into this without the prior approval of the governing body. Then only we can say that the remuneration governance principle is fair and transparent. So that is related to governance principle of remuneration governance. Now the next principle is related to assurance. Now here assurance, this particular principle is related to assuring the members of the organization. That means the employees of the organization about their services, about their jobs. Now, it is expected under this principle that this type of assurance can be given only if the board is effectively controlling or board is effectively managing the organization. If effective management is there, then the board will be aware of the financial health of that particular company and what will be the future of this particular company. If the board is effective and well aware of this, under this principle, it is expected that this type of assurance should be communicated to the employees also. Then only it is expected that the employees will try to be more productive. Now, the next principle is related to stakeholder relationships. Now, under this principle, it is expected that the prime role or prime responsibility of the governing body is that it has to see to it that the stakeholders relationship, stakeholders means shareholders or the employees of the organization or the customers of the organization, clients of the organization, all these can be called as stakeholders of the organization. Now the company has to see to it that these stakeholders are, the relations with these stakeholders are smooth, are cordial, are good, are proper. Then only, if if these relationships are good, then we can expect that there will be less grievances or less complaints. And if less grievances are there, then we can expect more satisfaction among the stakeholders. Clients will be satisfied, shareholders will be satisfied if the relationships are good. Now, how to make relationships good? That is also expected in this principle, that the whatever policies, whatever rules which are framed by the governing body related to corporate governance practices, these rules should be fair, these rules should be transparent, and these rules, these norms are to be communicated to everyone in the organization. If everyone knows about their role and responsibility, everyone knows that open communication is being practiced in the organization is practicing ethical practices, or these practices are based on the organizational values, at that particular time we can expect less dissatisfaction, not only among the employees but the other stakeholders also. If shareholders are paid their dividends regularly, whatever grievances are there of shareholders, they are solved at the earliest, promptly they are taken care of, then we can expect that this practice will satisfy the shareholders, that this particular company is practicing ethical practices, or these practices are based on their company values. So it will satisfy the clients also, it will satisfy same type of practices will satisfy the shareholders also. So these are some of the principles which are related to the 17 principles of corporate governance, which are to be practiced in the South African companies. Now, the last country which we will be taking up for discussion related to the corporate code of governance is Singapore. So what is the code of corporate governance in Singapore. Now, one more thing which is to be added is that when we talk about the practices, corporate governance practices in UK, in South Africa, and in Singapore, when we will be discussing shortly, it is expected that the board expects, or the code of corporate governance expects, that it should not be merely related to complying with the existing laws. So it should not be, the code of corporate governance doesn't expect that the company should merely comply with various laws of that particular country, but it expects that it should go beyond those laws. It should be based on the ethics and values of the organization. That is expected in the code of corporate governance in South Africa, in Singapore, as well as in UK also. Same thing is expected in Indian companies also, but we have realized that the pattern of Indian company is different. Pattern of Indian company in the sense that our companies are more rely on compliance part, that whatever is expected under law, definitely that will be complied with. But if anything extra is expected, that apart from merely complying with law, you should go beyond that. So very few companies try to go beyond that. Most of the companies in India see to it that whatever is expected under law, whatever is expected under Companies Act, whatever is expected under SEBI, they will try to comply that part only. They will not try to go beyond that. That okay, if it is not expected, suppose if it is expected that 60% of the board should consist of independent directors, most of the Indian companies will try to achieve that 60% only, even if they are getting, say, better experts. Say if 5 experts are included in 60%, 5 expert means 60% for that particular company, and company is in touch with, say, 6 or 7 experts, so they can include these experts also to their board of directors for effective corporate management governance. The scenario in Indian company is that most of the company will restrict themselves to 5 only, or 60% only, because the law expects, SEBI expects, company law expects that 60% should be the ceiling. When we talk about the other countries, the developed countries, there the scenario is different. If they are getting more independent people or independent experts, they will try to go for that, because they are working, or they are functioning on the basis of recommendations of various committees. And in India, we are not functioning on the basis of recommendations of various committees, but Indian companies have a general tendency that they wait till the recommendation of the committees are turned into laws of the country, then they start implementing. But in developed countries, the practice of corporate governance is different. They are, whatever recommendations are given by the committee set up by their government, and if they feel that the recommendation will help the organization to grow, they immediately start implementing